Okay, and we are live. Welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox Podcast. Once again, I got Logan with me. Logan, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing pretty good, man. Doing pretty good. How about you?
Good. It's been a good week for gaming news. Nothing really bad happened other than the elephant in the room, which is the PlayStation 5 Pro price, which is actually related to Xbox in some way. I will do at some point. And obviously, we're going to be talking about that stuff later on in the show. I think this has probably been one of the most interesting weeks for gaming news because all platforms have had some sort of rumors when it comes to hardware. There's new games on the horizon. There's games that's going to be announced. There's stuff about at TGS which we think is going to be there. It's going to be a good week, and I think as Xbox fans, there's a lot to look forward to. A lot of interesting stuff. We're obviously going to be talking about Final Fantasy later in the show because that's going to be a big one. Um, it's just funny seeing the reactions to day off prices. You have Jeff Keighley doing his thing. It's all over the place, but we'll get to all that stuff later. Before we get into all that, Logan, what have you been playing this week?
Well, I've been trying to wrap up Diablo 2 Resurrected. I'm at the final boss of Act 4. So, realizing my gear was a little under leveled and I needed to go back and grind a bit to get better stuff. I respect, but then I realize I respect incorrectly and I can't respect the respect. So I'm having to get a few more levels to fix something, but enjoying that. And Power Wash Sim, as always, is just a nice chill experience. And I've been fighting to bring glory to the Emperor and Warhammer Space Marine 2. And my goodness,
Yeah.
man, like we talk about we'll talk about it more in depth later, but we talk about how there's been need for some truly like okay, this is pod racing, like this is next gen
Yeah.
experience. That game right there, that hits the nail on the head. I'm loving it. Like I'm smiling like Jeff Keighley looking at a PS5 playing that game. It is it makes me so daggum happy.
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing a bunch of different things. I've actually been playing Warhammer 40k Space Marine 1 a lot. I was
Oh,
determined.
very nice.
Yeah, I was determined to finish it before the sequel came out. Made it just in time. That game, let me tell you, it holds up incredibly well to the point where I'm gonna do my whole port beg remastering thing because there's a 10-minute segment of that game. I think it's in like chapter 9, and it has to be one of the best gaming experiences I've ever had. So you get given a jetpack and you're in this arena sized place, and you have to basically kill all the enemies and hunt down a boss. Pretty easy concept. It's not even a difficult part of the game. It's actually just fun. But you get given a power hammer and a jetpack, and it is just absolutely brutal. There's blood everywhere. It's amazing. If people have a 360 or a PC, play it if you can. It's an incredible game. Still holds up. The gameplay is exceptional. I've been playing a bunch of Star Trucker, which is launched in Game Pass last week. It is what it says on the cover. You're a truck driver in space. It's weirdly relaxing. I will say this though, if people are just wanting to get into it and relax, you want to click on the custom difficulty and turn power cell usage on low, because that game can be punishing. But if you turn everything down, you can still unlock all the achievements, and it goes from this extremely brutal game about trying to survive in a truck simulator to being a relaxing game with this kind of like Firefly vibe. It's hard to explain. Um, but it's been a good week for gaming, and obviously Fallout 4. I I cannot sing that game's praises enough. You know, it it is incredible. On a weekly basis, I see the whole New Vegas thing on Twitter where like you talk about Fallout of any kind and you have New Vegas in replies, and it's like I get it, but like let me enjoy this, right? Fallout 4 is an exceptional game. I can't really say enough positive things about it. In fact, I can't really say many negative things about it. I don't like crafting in most games anyway, so it's like that.
Sucks.
Yeah, like that's pretty much the only negative I have against it, and that's just because I don't like crafting. I think Minecraft is the only game that I can do it in. That's really easy, you know. And the other game I've been playing is Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. We might as well talk about this before we get into that game. Quick note, YouTube, it's an amazing platform. However, sometimes if you do a live stream, YouTube isn't exactly the best at sharing these links out or even notifying people. So if you're enjoying the show, share it out. It really helps the show out, and likes are appreciated, and it helps all that algorithmic stuff. So let's talk about Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2. Yes, that is a mouthful. What a game. I have seen some websites report it as it's an Xbox 360 game, but in the best possible way, and it is. It is a Xbox 360 game souped up on steroids. It is incredible. Now, I am only in the beginning area of the game after the prologue. But that game pretty much tells you straight away what you're getting into. You're going to get a third-person shooter. It's linear, kind of in the style of a Gears of War game. But this game will throw not just a few enemies at you, not just 10 enemies or 20 enemies. Hell, in the first game, there's sections where they throw maybe like 40 enemies at you. This game will throw hundreds, thousands of enemies at you. And some people thought it may have been just a backdrop where those enemies don't actually get you. It's like they can. You know, in World War Z, they proved that tech works. You know, there's scenes in that game where hundreds of zombies are chasing after you in like tight, narrow hallways. It's really intense, and they've got this here. But while World War Z was more in the style of a Left 4 Dead game, this is very much Gears all the way. It carries on from the story from the first game, but you don't need to have played the first game. So that's that out of the way. And like the voice acting is exceptional. Let's talk about graphics. Oh my goodness. This has to have some of the best game graphics I've ever seen. Like, it opens up with a CGI cutscene, and then when it cuts to gameplay, you don't even notice. It is so crisp. And Logan, I'm guessing you're playing on the same mode as I am. Quality.
Absolutely quality. I want those giblets shining and the chainsaw revving, and just it is grotesquely wonderful. It is so great looking.
Yeah, it's possibly one of the most gory games I've played in a long time, and I say that as a Gears fan. You know, in Gears games, you saw people up. You know, you saw Locust up and other characters, human characters, and it gets a bit gory. But this is on a whole other level. Your character can get drenched in so much blood you can't even see any of the armor. It's just a sea of red. It's amazing, and it's like this is what gaming has needed. You know, people have been talking about Astrobot all week. By the way, we're going to talk about Astrobot just because of the reaction online, because people are being weird about it. But like, these are the type of games we're talking about. Games that's all about fun. These are games you play, and they are gamey video games. And Space Marine 2 harkens back to the 360 era where, no, it's not an open world. You get told an excellent story and narrative through a single-player campaign or, 3-player co-op. And it's just so good. And, like, I haven't even touched the multiplayer or PvE yet. So, for people that don't know, it has a PvP mode. You know, it's 6v6 PvP multiplayer. It's also got a co-op mode, which is... You can kind of think it's like other PvE-style games. And it's not a live service, despite the fact it has online modes. It's not going to have microtransactions. It doesn't have paid cosmetics. Everything is just there. In fact, when you get the season pass, you get a bunch of extra goodies. But there's also 2 things that are coming in the season pass, which we don't know yet, which some data miners may have found out that they actually single-player expansions. So that'll be interesting. But most of the content's going to be free. Maps are going to be free. Weapons are going to be free. Enemy types are going to be free. That's going to be a big one. And also a brand new Horde mode It's getting an official horde mode in 2025 where like this game can throw thousands of enemies at you. So Logan, can you imagine what horde is going to be like?
Oh man, you're gonna be like up to your neck in guts and all these like Xenos just trying to rip you apart, and you're gonna hear these unholy screams as this horde descends this mountain, and then you hear your fellow Marines shouting orders and their muzzle flashes and just trying to fight off this, and it's gonna be this overwhelming sense of awe and dread and also power at the same time, all wrapped up in one package. It is like it is just it's truly something to behold. Like you said, I loved World War Z. I enjoyed the film, but
Yeah.
the game for some reason just took it to another level for me. I really enjoy it. I like what Saber does, and they really took what they learned from that game, like, oh, instead of zombies and Left 4 Dead formula experience, let's put that into Warhammer. And instead of a human trying to survive with modified weapons you find in New York subways or whatever, you
Yeah.
go, okay, I am a 7 foot tall badass with full deck metal plated armor and enhanced abilities and insane weapons. Let's go ham. And chef's kiss, buddy. This is glorious. I love it.
Yeah. Would you say it does really harken back to the seventh gen, but obviously souped up graphics?
Oh, 100%. Like, I mean that as a compliment when I say if I compare something to a 360, that is like the ultimate praise I can give something. That was my favorite gen. Like across the board, it felt like the whole industry was hitting its stride in creativity and fun and all kinds of stuff. Like you have these awesome sci-fi, government conspiracy lab experiment type games with, the Half Life Orange Box mixed and then Portal thrown in. You've got, all these RPGs from Bethesda. You've got the Gears franchise. Star Wars is in a good groove. You, it's like everything is firing and things are just fun and creative and not formulaic with a just copy and paste with a different skin or chasing the almighty microtransaction or battle passes or trying to turn a game into a job because they can. It was all about vibes, and this game definitely has vibes in spades.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of talk in the industry over the past few months, well, a year, over game budgets and, the balloon in size of these games. I do not know how much this game costs, but I want more games like this. Just give me a campaign, give me a separate multiplayer mode, and the PvE stuff. Like, that's great. And like, people are going nuts over what this Horde mode could be. Like, especially Warhammer fans. Like, they know thousands of years of lore and what kind of enemies we could see. And, there aren't really orcs in this game. Whereas in the first game, that's pretty much all you fight. You fight orcs and these chaos demon creatures. That's pretty much it. So, like, I can only imagine what they're going to add to this game in the future. But, like, it is pretty cool to have this full, complete game at launch. With I've had no issues with. You've got campaign, PvP, PvE, no microtransactions. Like, it's sad that we've got to the point where this is a surprise if it happens now, but it's just great. Launched in a great condition, and even the price. Let me talk about price. In the UK, it launched at $59.99. I say that is fair, right? I think $59.99 is a perfectly good price for this game. The amount of content you're getting, and it even has like a replayability factor, and they add new difficulty modes. It's even getting a brand new pistol in season 2, which you can use in single player and in multiplayer. It's like, it's really good that they're going to add these things for free over time, and it's just going to make the game even better. Whereas in the past, we've seen with a lot of games where the launch and all the updates you get are basically to fix things that people wanted there at launch, and to, let's face it, just fix the game in general, because everything launch is broken now. But this, beautiful launch. And it's also going to get its ultra wide support on PC this month as well. I know there's people waiting for that on PC. It's also going to get private PvE lobbies. So if you don't want to deal with other people, you just want to play with your friends online, but do PvE stuff, that's all coming. So, like, this is the example of a perfectly launched game at the right time. Because everyone's complaining about the state of the industry at the minute. The industry is in a mess. It's a mess. You have Sony, which is coming out with a $700 console, which we'll talk about later. Like, the rumors of game prices going up. There's been rumors that paid upgrades might be a thing in the future, but you have this game, this absolute gem, and it just works, and everything's there. It's an ambitious title, yet it's familiar, and if people like Gears, if you like Warhammer, hell, even if you like the World War Z game, you're gonna love this. What a game! Logan, have you got anything else to say on this game before we move on? Because I'm still in the opening areas of the game, but I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'm not too far in it myself, but I've been completely just like, okay, this is awesome. So I'll have more thoughts, more concrete thoughts on it later. But I will say that I went ahead and I know we talked price ad nauseum on this show,
Yeah.
but I went ahead and shelled out for like the top of the line digital edition, um, because I trust Saber and what they've done, and so far I've been rewarded, and I can't wait for the expansions. The skins and customization stuff they give with those are really really cool as well, and yeah, just like the fact that they're throwing in, horde mode and all this other stuff, and then you get these big meaty expansions which are coming apparently for story and stuff. Like, man, I cannot wait. And I'll just throw in another support to you about like I've been chilling like almost every time I see a post from the devs about the game asking for a port of the first one as well. Because people really want more Space Marines, and th- we talk about all the negatives in the industry and how everything is samey. Like, really put your money where your mouth is, and support the ones that do the right thing and make something that is a pure just game that's no nonsense and wonderful and you enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's this weird systemic issue that's came from the past 2 years of, like, we see all these developers get laid off, games launch broken, everything's been turned into a live service. And people are stepping back from a lot of live service games. They kind of had enough, and you have this gem that launched great at a good price with a lot of content. And, like, look at Warhammer as a franchise. Let's be honest, right? Warhammer is the nerdiest franchise on the planet. It just is. Like
Oh
that.
yeah, it is.
That is the definition of nerd franchise. And I'm a nerd. Hell, I talk about Star Trek all the time. Um, but, like, Warhammer is like the god emperor of nerd like franchises, and it's getting a lot of people into the Warhammer franchise. I know Games Workshop right now, they are probably lighting cigars with $100 bills because, like, the amount of people that are just, like, buying Warhammer figures now, and, like, even me, I'm looking at Warhammer figures thinking I could technically paint that, and it's like I know about the addiction when it comes to that. People have told me that you will spend a lot of money on these models and go broke. um, but I mean, hey, I've been interested in the universe for a long time, and I think this game especially is going to be a good, like, jumping in point for a lot of people because it doesn't throw you in the deep end with the story. Like, this is a franchise that has 40,000 years of lore, but at the beginning of the game it says, "Hey, we need to get rid of these insects. Plant the gas bomb." That's it. That's literally it, right? Everything is just, like, so crystal clear, and I've people have thought that I've worked for Focus Entertainment before because of the amount of good, like, praise I give them. But as a publisher, they do a good job. right? They come out with games all the time that are unique. There's small games like indie titles, there's like AA games, AAA games, and they pretty much always launch working. They don't do microtransactions, not really. They do supporter packs, which I can get behind. And games launch complete. So, like, if people ever out there thinking, "Oh, there's not much to play," or you're sick of the AAA industry, look at Focus Entertainment. There's actually a sale on Xbox Live right now of all their games. They release some great games that kind of get overlooked. We see IGN give a lot of these games a 7 out of 10. They gave this game a 6 out of 10, which is just why.
Outrageous.
Yeah, it's crazy. But like it's like an average score. If you give a game a 7, like that 7 to a lot of people is like, I might get it, I might not. The truth is, people miss out on a lot of games because of that, and I think Focus Entertainment are a good example of those games need to get more attention. Anyway, we have the first super chat of the day by Nick W. Thank you very much for the $5. He says, I bought the Steam version of Warhammer Space Marine 2. I will start after I finish Astrobot. Happy to hear. I love the fact that this game is getting support on all platforms. I'm just guessing this might come to the Switch too at some point, but I know it's doing really well on Steam. Last time I saw, there was like 200,000 people playing, like a Warhammer game. It's kind of weird to think because the last major Warhammer game that came out was Darktide. That one launched in Game Pass, I think it was like a year ago, and it had a bunch of issues. It had screen tearing. They fixed all that stuff now, though, but Warhammer games traditionally, outside of Total Warhammer, this is becoming a Warhammer episode for some reason, but like the game is in a good state now. Warhammer's just picking up, and I think this game proves that gamers that aren't familiar with the franchise whatsoever. Like, I've played Warhammer games for years. I can tell you I know diddly squat about that franchise. I just see cool Space Marines, I'm playing that. And, with this, you see all these people buying this game at the minute on Xbox, PlayStation, and Steam. I'm betting 90% of those people know nothing about Warhammer. And that's fine. This game is perfectly good for those people because it doesn't throw you in the deep end with the story. But yeah, and happy to hear another person's enjoying Astrobot. Like, I've seen in the past week, we'll actually move into the Astrobot thing now, because yes, that's a PlayStation game, but I want to talk about it because there's been some weird reactions online. Like, I put out there, I haven't played the game. I think Astrobot looks awesome. I like 3D platformers, but in 2024, we don't get many, I am actually playing a SpongeBob SquarePants platform at the minute. It's on Game Pass. I can't remember its name. I think it's called Battle for Bikini Bottom or something. It's an out there name. And it's a super fun game. Nobody really talked about it. But since Astrobot came out, I've noticed that, you have one lot of people going nuts for it. And you have this other lot of people that are kind of like against it. And the way I see it is like, I think it's good that PlayStation's releasing more variety now. This is something different as opposed to their normal, third-person, over-the-shoulder action-adventure game with sad dad moments. This is a colourful 3D platformer. Microsoft does them, or have done in the past. Nintendo does them a lot. And whenever I do get a PlayStation, I'm going to pick that up. It looks super cool, Although I do think there have been some outliers out there that have overly glazed the game online, and that kind of happens with first-party releases across the board. But look, Logan, I know you've got a PlayStation 5, right?
Yeah, this is a title I do plan on picking up.
Yeah, like a lot of people seem to be enjoying it. I think like I've seen a lot of people say it has a lot of things in common with Mario titles. And I think if you're going to copy a game, you're going to copy a Mario game. Like, 3D Mario games always play good, and I will be one of those people that defend Mario Sunshine. I thought it was a fun game on GameCube.
I liked it.
Yeah, now there's two of us. But it was a good game back in the day, and, who really cares if a game's copying it? Like, all games copy each other in some way. Like, hell, most modern third-person shooters, I should say first-person shooters, wouldn't be what they are today if it wasn't for Halo and then Call of Duty Modern Warfare back in 2007. Like, it happens, you know? I think it's just good all around, but it is weird. I have seen some people online, they get really defensive about this game if you have anything to say about it. It's like, look, do you know Mass Effect? And if people are listening for the first time, hello, I talk about Mass Effect all the time because I'm kind of obsessed with it. Mass Effect obviously borrowed a lot from other franchises. You know, there's a little bit of Star Trek in there. There's some Star Wars. There's definitely a lot of Knights of the Old Republic in there because it's the same bloody developers. You know, I'm okay with developers using like similar gameplay techniques or being inspired from other games. Hell, I've been begging for other developers to copy Mass Effect for like 15 years. Please, copy that game. I don't care if it's beat for beat exactly the same as a game I've played 11 times. Copy it. But it's just weird. I don't know. I think, like, Logan, you've obviously seen the stuff online about Astrobot. I personally think it's fine. You know, it looks cool. I'm going to get it whenever I do get a PlayStation, or at this point, I may as well wait for a PlayStation 6. But, like, the drama online has been a bit weird about it.
Yeah, it's been really odd because, on one hand, I'm really excited that it's doing well and reviewing well and that people are buying it. And like, I actually saw a stat the other day. I don't know how accurate it is, so don't take it to the bank. But I saw a post somewhere saying that it in 2 days had already, in just the UK alone, had already eclipsed all of Concord's sales, just period. So, I guess, which isn't that high of a number anyway, but
Yeah.
it's doing well, and I'm just happy to see a small, creative, just pure fun game do well and thrive. At the other end of things, it does feel like some of the stuff, hyperbole about it, is a little over the top, kind of. Like, I kind of had a hunch it was gonna be, one of those games that get shooed into Game of the Year discussions for reasons, but they're not helping the allegations with the discussion on it right now. And I'm sure it's a great game. I'm looking forward to playing
Yeah.
myself. As someone who grew up in that era, I love platformers, and I especially love the mascot era of the 90s and early 2000s. So I'm looking forward to playing it on my PS5. Not my PS5 Pro, but my PS5. And I this might be part of our discussion later, but I do wish Xbox would embrace that a little bit and have kind of a celebratory game of its legacy, like this game feels like for PlayStation.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think Xbox they would be in a unique position because you have backwards compatibility. People have access to those games. So like having a game that would pay homage to all those games and generations, like I think Xbox could do that. I will say this though, it is weird that Xbox gets a game a week and a half ago, and the media's very quiet on it. It's reviewed well, really well. In fact, it's got really good numbers on Steam at the minute. It's Age of Mythology Untold, Retold, sorry. Age of Mythology Retold, and people are saying it's a fantastic RTS. I have a review coming out next week about it because I got the review code provided to me 8 hours before the game went live. So didn't do me that many
Book it.
favors. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what they were thinking, but there'll be a review included in next week's podcast. But like the game looks fantastic from what I've played. It plays really good. Do you know how often it is we get RTS games on console? Rare. Do you know how often we get RTS games on console that control bloody great? Even rarer. And this game controls great. But what I'm saying is, like, a week and a half later, PlayStation gets a 3D platformer. Awesome, right? But everyone's saying, hey, Xbox needs a platformer now. But nobody said PlayStation needs an RTS. And I kind of looked at that thinking, like, why people continue to do this thing where they act like one genre is better than another. It's like, we get 3D platformers pretty rare now. Do you know what's even rarer than that? RTS games. And some RTS games could be amazing. One of my favorite games of all time is Star Trek Armada 2. That was on PC in the early 2000s. I think it might have been 2004. And it's one of the best games I've ever played in my entire life. And it's an easy RTS to get into. I don't really think you can buy it on any platform at the minute. I think you can buy the first one on GOG. But, like, there are people that overly glaze in this game, calling it game of the year. And, like, hell, whenever I get to play it, I might think the same. But I'm just happy that there's a wide variety of genres out, because we don't need the same thing over and over again. You know, I talk about Unreal Engine 5 titles a lot because people are really interested in the tech and how those games look. But if you take all Unreal Engine 5 games and put them next to each other, they kind of all look the same. You know, some look slightly better than others. Some use, you know, global real-time global illumination, so it looks even better. But, like, I like that, you know.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah, like I like the fact that, hey, there's this RTS out, which is all about mythology and all that stuff, and then you have this platformer on, you know, PlayStation. That's something different. You know, hell, Nintendo. There's a Zelda game coming out, I think next week, where you actually play as Zelda. That's really cool. You know, I just think across the board, each platform is doing something different right now, and that works. You know, I just don't think the whole, hey, let's just talk about this one thing and ignore the other. Like, RTS games get really overlooked, and that annoys the hell out of me. It really does. You know, speaking of RTS games, and you know, by the way, I haven't never said a bad thing about Astro. I think the game looks fantastic. I love 3D platformers. Just we don't get them that often. Anyway, oh yeah, and I just found out before the channel, before the video went live, or the podcast, Ara History Untold, which is another RTS like city builder type game. For some reason, I had no idea this was coming to console. Turns out it is.
It is?
Yeah, I found out just before the show went live. So yeah, that really ambitious.
I thought that was exclusive to PC.
So did I. It turns out it's coming to Xbox as well, just after they've released the PC version, which, hey, I'm fine with. I've played some great controlling RTS games on console, and I've played some bad ones. And let me tell you, the bad ones are awful. But if they want to take time to get the controls right, that's great. Logan, you sound pretty surprised because, like, literally, just before the show went live.
Like, everything had kind of just tuned that game out, to be honest, because I thought it was PC, and I just thought Xbox was doing that goofy thing they do where they take one type of genre and then they try to prioritize PC, and maybe, just maybe, we'll bring it to Xbox later. So I'm glad to hear that it is actually coming to Xbox, but it felt like one of those Gears tactics thing. It's like, why aren't you launching this at the same time? But it's better to get it right than not. So I'm cool with it, and I will definitely check out more on it now that I know it's actually coming to the platform.
Yeah, the funny thing is, like you said, I've done the same thing. I've tuned that game out because on my PC right now, this PC is meant for video editing and nothing else. That is it. However, I do have 2 games installed. I have Human Fall Flat, which is, don't ask me why I play that, and I also have Homeworld Remastered Collection. That is it, right? It's not a PC that's meant for gaming. So I still want these games to come to console. So, like, I tuned that game out. I was like, okay, not going to pay attention to it. And whenever I've talked about games coming to Xbox in general, people bring up Ara, and I've just been saying, no, Xbox as in console. But yeah, turns out console. So it looks like over the next 6 months-ish, we are going to be getting two big budget RTS games and city builders. I can't remember the name of the other one, but Manor Lords, that's it. Manor Lords. That's coming to Xbox as well. That's going to be big. Huge on PC, and it's only in early access. But yeah, Good times. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? Let's talk about the Ubisoft thing, because this has been wild. So, if people don't know, Ubisoft, they've been having some weird issues, and it's kind of all over the place. Their stock has dropped, let me check, 51% in the past year. So, if anyone's listening and they have Ubisoft stock, I am extremely sorry. It is not a good time for Ubisoft stakeholders. And like I've never seen a stock drop like this in gaming for a very long time. Very long time. And they have a bunch of issues which we'll talk about. But one of the kind of smaller stakeholders wants to make the whole company go private so they can restructure the thing. Now, Ubisoft consists of 40 gaming studios with over 10,000 developers. So that's why their games aren't making as much money as they want. Their games that make recurring revenue, like Rainbow Six Siege, they aren't making the amount of they're not making the dollars they want. It's a mess. Ubisoft, people are theorizing, are they going to get bought up? I don't think Ubisoft will get bought up by anyone. Before we get into the hows and whys, Logan, what's your take on the whole thing? Because it's a big disaster.
He's kind of been a cluster for a couple years now, and I remember even before this, there was that guy that was basically trying to stage a coup within the company, like to buy up a bunch of shares and try to hostile takeover and stuff. And then they eventually were able to get enough shares to move him. And then now there's this, and in the volatility of the industry, it's just yet another match, and it's something to keep an eye on. Like, personally, I think if they go private, they would go private for a while and try to settle things down and maybe get purchased by someone that's not a gaming power at the moment. I don't think they would be a Xbox target by any means, like especially when Xbox has its own issues right now and PlayStation as well. But maybe like if a say a Disney or a Apple or somebody wanted to dabble in gaming and get a batch of IP ready to go and a big workforce, potentially that. But I think it's a wait and see at the moment. And apparently, a lot of the stockholder stuff has been reported as unhappiness with sales of Outlaws. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. But that's the spin that's been out there. And if that's true, I do think once again, take a shot. The pricing of some of these things has been put off to people, especially when you release it and you're having to come out with a big patch within days to nerf it and completely rework the opening of the game.
Yeah. Before excuse me, before I read the super chat, Logan, just a heads up, you are keep cutting out like last time. We can make out what you're saying, but just a heads up, let's keep going in and out.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
But yeah, so we have another super chat by Nick W for $5. He says they need to make a Rayman game and a Splinter Cell. Nail on the head. Let me tell you, I loved Rayman Origins and Rayman Legends. Those I'm not the biggest fan of musicals, right? I'm not the target demographic for musicals. I just don't like them that much. But the best part of those games were the musical levels. Like, they were so original, so well written, and we haven't really had anything like that before. And Splinter Cell, oh my god, let me tell you, I love Splinter Cell so much. I love that franchise. Like, I talk about Mass Effect, 40 times a day. Splinter Cell I love, but we just don't get games. We haven't had a Splinter Cell game for 11 heartbreakingly long years. And I hate that. We got told there's a Splinter Cell remake coming, it was announced 3 years ago, 2 years ago. We've had no updates since. I die inside every time there's a Ubisoft showcase and there's absolutely nothing, and we just get Splinter Cell skins in Rainbow Six Siege or any mobile game they've got. I hate it. Ubisoft to me used to be the biggest and best third-party publisher. Let's hop in the time machine. Let's go back to 2012 and 2013. They were putting out games like Assassin's Creed 4, Black Flag, which people loved. At the time, it was, I believe, the best-selling Assassin's Creed game, or one of. You had Splinter Cell Blacklist, which had some of the best mission design, in my opinion, in any Splinter Cell game. Granted, it didn't sell as well because the whole Michael Ironside situation, but it was a great game nonetheless. You had Far Cry 3, which was a huge step forward from Far Cry 2. I'll put it like this. In the UK, Far Cry 3 pretty much sold off word of mouth. There was next to no advertising whatsoever, yet everyone bought it because everyone heard about how much fun it is, and people just bought it up. We had Rayman Origins. They were putting out smaller indie-style games like... I forgot what it was called, but there's a side-scrolling, like, narrative-driven World War II game. I can't remember its name. Valiant Hearts, that's it. And like they had something different coming out all the time. Look at Ghost Recon. Ghost Recon was a Future Warfare, the last one before Wildlands. Like, that was a linear game where you used futuristic gadgets, and some of those missions epic. In fact, it has some of the best game mechanics in a third-person shooter to this day. And over time, they kind of diluted everything, where every game has the exact same setup. Watch Dogs is basically modern-day Assassin's Creed. There's outposts. You have Far Cry now, which for the longest time, you go to a tower, you get to the top, you turn on the radio, and you've opened up a bunch of icons on the map. Straight from Assassin's Creed. Ghost Recon is now open world, and it has outposts, and you have to spot different targets and stuff. It's like, I think the problem with Ubisoft at the minute, I love a lot of Ubisoft games. I buy World War One. That's it. World War One. Valiant Hearts. I was close enough. But like, when it comes to Ubisoft games, they had so much variety back in like 2012, 2013. And like, over time, just everything turned into this open world samey game. And I have a lot of those samey games. Maybe I'm part of the problem. I love Far Cry. I love Ghost Recon. I love Assassin's Creed. But I'll be honest, like, every time I play one of these games now, I'm like, I've kind of played this in a different setting in a different franchise. It's all kind of the same now. And that's probably the problem. Now, I haven't gotten to Star Wars Outlaws yet, just because when it comes to a big open world game like that, I like to make sure I can... I want to be able to play this game for like 6 hours straight when I get to it. Hopefully this week, maybe next week, I don't know. But I'm looking forward to it. And like, apparently that does have a lot of like things from Ubisoft titles, but apparently it's also fresh. And that's cool. Like, I talk about Avatar Frontiers of Pandora a lot. That is a lot like Far Cry. However, it has a lot of gameplay mechanics that aren't in Far Cry. I just think Ubisoft's problem is they need to mix things up a bit. Like, they failed so many times in the past where they had so many wins set up for them. Like, Logan, do you know how many copies of Ghost Recon Wildlands sold?
I'd say more than Concord, but not much.
25 million copies.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, like a huge success. It wasn't even marketed that much, not really, and it sold an insane amount. So what did they have to do? What did Ubisoft have to do? You make a sequel. You do the exact same thing in a different area with a different story with new gameplay mechanics. That's all they had to do. But with the Ghost Recon Breakpoint, they basically did that. They opened it up with this really cool mission, which I won't spoil because it's really good now. They opened it up with a really cool mission, and all they had to do was do a sequel, but it was lacking simple gameplay mechanics the first game had. And we had to wait 6 months for a lot of them. almost a year for all of them, and they tried to do it so it was like Destiny, how you would win rewards and weapons and armor, and people didn't like it. So now the game's finally been patched, and I don't know how many copies it sold, but like it clearly did not get the Wildlands fan base over. So massive failure. But for people that are maybe interested now, they fixed everything. In fact, when you start the game, you can decide whether you want to play it like a Destiny game or a Ghost Recon game. All that stuff is like customizable, which I haven't really seen in a game before. And I'd say now it's a good game. But like Ubisoft, they have these like absolute clear wins ahead of them, and they just mess up. Assassin's Creed Black Flag is one of the most beloved games in the franchise. Did they make a sequel to Black Flag? We're not counting Assassin's Creed Rogue. That's a spin-off. But did 4 get a sequel where it would have printed money? No. We got Skull and Bones, which people will not buy for even £10. Like, that's Ubisoft's problem. They keep pumping money into these projects which people A, didn't ask for, or B, like, they release games in a horrible way. Like, people just don't want. I'm just annoyed because Ubisoft has the potential to make so many good games with all the franchises they got. And, like, they've shelved Watch Dogs as a franchise for life. They had the potential to have a GTA competitor, even on a small level. But they keep messing up time and time again. And I hope they get things sorted because I love a lot of their franchises. But I think that Ubisoft needs to take a step back, maybe not have, like, having 40 teams consisting of thousands of developers. I can't even imagine what the overhead is like for that company. But it's clearly not working. Like, Logan, I've been talking for 10 minutes straight. What's your take on the whole Ubisoft thing? Because it's a mess over there.
Yeah, they just have so many employees, which is not a bad thing, but the overhead is really high and they have to really hit on their numbers. And the culture has been, hit or miss depending on reports you read. And so you add all that together, and then they're basically just, they've found this formula and they've just are married to this formula, right or wrong. Just, like to go to the tower, scale the tower, scan, do this, do that, clear out a rebel outpost, upgrade this, do this endless fetch quest for that, clear out an area, gain favor with this faction, do that. It's just becomes just so formulaic. It's like the old school like cartoons almost, to where like like you have this character with a crossover over here, or this character with a crossover over there. It's like Scooby Doo goes to, Zombie Island. Scooby Doo goes to space. Scooby Doo does this. Scooby Doo does that. It's just like, all right, it feels like the same kind of thing every single time, just a different, you know, shade of paint on it. And it kind of just gets old after a while. Like, they're talented. They're a quality developer and publisher. Like, some really great franchises and games are in their repertoire. I loved Ghost Recon growing up. And, like you said, the old school Assassin's Creeds I loved, and then they had some of those creative risk games like Child of Light, and then Valiant Hearts, and just other stuff that they did that was really fun and unique. But it now it feels like just copy and paste for everything. Which, if you absolutely adore that formula and you just gotta have it, then boy, do I have good news for you, because that is what they've been doing. And I would love it if they tried some other stuff. Hopefully, they take the success of Mirage, which kind of went back on its roots a little bit, and then I wish more people would buy the Prince of Persia Metroidvania that's fantastic, and like bring about some more of that stuff because they're a good publisher and I want them to do well. But they really got to diversify that portfolio because, like, seriously, like, quit blue balling the fan base about Splinter Cell. Like,
Yeah.
number one, that is a major issue. Like, every time you see that trinity of green lights light up when you hear the sound as it's booting up, or you hear Ironside's voice, and you get super excited, only for it to be Sam Fisher guest stars in this new mobile shooter game that we have on our phone. You'll have phones, right? Or this shameless skins and cash grabs and cameos, and just like give the people what they want. Like maybe you're too scared to make it. I don't know, but at least try. You never know if you don't try. And that's my biggest complaint with them is that they just seem so burnt out and creatively scared that they're not taking any risks besides, like I said, just copy and paste. It is very much the Sony third person sad dad narrative, but apocalypse or space or medieval times or whatever. They have the same issue.
Yeah. It is a weird one because I just saw in chat there. I had no idea. I have to be careful with how I word this. So SBI was founded by former Ubisoft employees. I had no idea. Um, I'm not surprised. I try to stay away from this topic because it can get really heated online. Um, you know, I think the problem is like, yeah, people are getting sick and tired of things, and it all boils down to how well written characters are. I'll always use Ahsoka Tano from Star Wars Clone Wars as an example. When Clone Wars first started, people hated Ahsoka Tano. She was an annoying brat, and like through the 7 season arc, she develops as a character to the point where people love it. Like she's one of my favorite Star Wars characters now, and like I'd
It's
say,
awesome.
yeah, I think most of the Star Wars community like love Ahsoka Ahsoka. I can't speak today. Ahsoka Tano. Um, and like she's a great example of a well written character. I haven't played Outlaws, so I don't know anything about that character yet. But the clips I have seen, she seems fine. But I think people are just getting sick of even the talk of the whole narrative thing being brought up. Like that's all that was like. Look, I'll use IGN as an example, right? IGN are probably one of the biggest causes of this. So we're getting a brand new Assassin's Creed game this year, and there's controversy around it. Like for me, it's not a big deal because I think the game looks great. But I've noticed if IGN talks about Assassin's Creed Shadows, they don't mention the second character in that game, Naue, the stealth character, because they are rage baiting people based on stuff that's floating around. Like in a franchise that's stealth related, Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, she's a badass ninja.
Yeah,
It looks
yeah,
awesome.
in IGN and not talking about her whatsoever. And I've seen a bunch of the Naue gameplay footage. Like she has these gameplay mechanics which I've been asking for Assassin's Creed to have for like 10 years. Being able to swing from a grappling hook thing. Being able to climb up into the ceiling and hide from enemies. Like that's super cool. But IGN, no. We need the rage bait clicks, and it's all manufactured. All this rage you see online. There are issues in gaming with stuff, but like, yeah, SBI being related to Ubisoft, that doesn't surprise me. I do think at a point all this stuff will go away. Games will start having it'll either be a good game or a bad game. Does it have well written characters or not? Like that's all it boils down to. People don't care what gender they play in. As like Tomb Raider is one of the most popular franchises in the world. You play as a woman. Nobody cares. Like, like I think I think people just need to calm down. Not in chat, but just in the online. People just seem to get really, really into it. Anyway, we'll continue. We're about an hour into the show. If you're enjoying it, please like, share, and subscribe. I hate doing these little ads, but it does help the algorithm out and all that nonsense. If you want to support the channel with super chats, all that stuff's live. It's greatly appreciated and helps me improve the content and all that stuff. Anyway, let's move on. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about, including some spicy stuff. My God. You know what? We'll get the one more Star Wars update out first. We touched on this quickly. So there is a brand new update for Star Wars Outlaws, which fixes a lot of people's problems with the opening section of the game, which was a stealth section, basically. So if you're crap at stealth, and a lot of people are, don't worry. No more insta-fail stuff. So people don't have to worry about that. Like, again, I can't wait to play it. I'm just waiting for, a decent amount of time. I feel that I can play. I want 6 hours where I can just no-life that game, basically. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? I'll get this out of the way. I've been a huge Metal Gear Solid nerd my entire life. I love Metal Gear Solid. Does it make sense? It depends how much you're into the franchise. It's like, oh, you have these two talking dolls in Metal Gear Acid on PSP, but you also have this dude that's also half a vampire in Metal Gear Solid 2 and Metal Gear Solid 4 Guns of the Patriots. It's all over the place. It really is. But I love it. I love how weird that franchise is. It doesn't make any sense, and I need that stuff in my veins. Well, anyway, it was confirmed today that Volume 2 is happening. They didn't go into detail about any of the games that's going to be included. We kind of know which ones are. Peace Walker, 5, and, of course, 4, which is the big one. But it's confirmed that it's happening. They are going to update the first game because they have said they want to give it native 4K resolution, which is huge. If you take that first game, when did Metal Gear Solid launch on the original PlayStation? Like 96, 97, something like that. Like in 4K natively, it actually looks pretty good still. Like, surprisingly. If people have a PC, you know what I'm talking about. That game still looks good. But it looks like they're going to keep on patching the first game, all that stuff, give it, quality of life features, which I love to see. Konami, they actually taking care of these games. Should they have launched in a better state? Obviously. But it's Metal Gear. I'm glad that things are actually happening with the franchise again. And yeah, Volume 2's, it's coming. Logan, what do you think? Because I've been port begging Metal Gear Solid 4 on Twitter for about 6 years, and it looks like we're getting it.
Yeah, I'm super stoked for it. Like, I'll buy it for Metal Gear Solid 4 alone, because that is one I have always wanted to play through, and it has been, just stuck on my, like 20-pound PS3, launch PS3 that is, well, let's just say it's not the most reliable hardware anymore right now.
Yeah.
And I really want to experience it with all the bells and whistles of, modern Series X. And being able to have the whole saga like that it's just awesome, and wait for it. It's truly great game, and I hope that Sony sees that and brings back some more of the PS3 era games that are trapped on their complicated structure, and they find ways to make it work, because it was a good era of games, even though it was their lowest era for a while. And I hope they go harken back to that and some stuff, and people, including Xbox and other platforms, can experience some of those franchises that were hidden on that platform.
Yeah, if Konami can get it done, it just proves that like more of those PlayStation 3 games can come over. There's a lot of games by third-party companies that could be made multi-platform, but I'm just happy Konami, they pumping money into games again, because after the disaster of Metal Gear Survive, and if people don't know, that game literally charged you for extra save slots. Like, I thought I was
On the
taking,
move.
yeah, I thought I
Yeah.
was taking crazy pills when that happened because like you're getting away with this. The whole industry's been nickel and dimed. We all been nickel and dimed on a daily basis, and like they wanted to charge for save slots. Like, this isn't pachinko. Like, do not do this to me. Um, but hey, I'm happy they're making games again. They even have some smaller games in development. They're actually publishing some smaller indie games that look really cool. I'm just happy to. And do you know what the biggest takeaway for me is? In the past, I want to say 6 months, uh, they've actually hired David Hayter to do these sort of narrated segments in sort of catch-up trailers on the official Konami Metal Gear Solid YouTube channel. So, like, I can't imagine you're paying David Hayter to just come back for these Volume 1 and 2 collections in trailers. Like, I 100% believe that they have some deal worked out with David Hayter and whatever team they've got at the minute to make a brand new Metal Gear game. I do think we will see a Metal Gear Solid 6 at some point. Um, because, like, that is too much
Oh,
of a.
that'll be a day on
Yeah.
Twitter.
And, like, I love Metal Gear Solid, but, like, having Kiefer Sutherland as Snake, just no. And I say that as a 24 fan. I love Kiefer Sutherland. He's amazing. But what they did to that game, and like 5 has some of the best gameplay mechanics of all time, yet the story is just awful. Awful. We went from having 9 hours of cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid 4 to listening to audio tapes, optional audio tapes for the story in 5. That was insulting as a Metal Gear fan. I want my 10 hours of cutscenes. By the way, do you know there's a cutscene in Metal Gear Solid 4 when I knew it was coming up the last time I played it? I literally just sat back, put my controller down, and I just poured myself a few drinks. It was like 2 hours long. Not even kidding. But it's glorious. And I can't wait to go through those 2 hours again when they come out on Xbox because I love Metal Gear Solid 4 and it's trapped on archaic hardware, and mine sounds like it's about to take off every time I turn it on. Like, it's done. I think my PlayStation 3 is it's done so. Like, I'd be shocked if I can get another year out of it. It literally sounds like the Hoover's being
Those
turned on.
things sound like pressure cookers,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, they are super loud. And I have the slim model, not the second one, but the first slim, and it sounds terrible, like absolutely terrible. But hey, I'll take more ports. I'm just happy, Konami, they clearly trying to take care of the Metal Gear franchise, which at the end of the day, that's all we want, which is good to see. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? Let's talk about Final Fantasy. So, people have been wondering, and I've had an argument in the past week with people on Twitter about this. Shocker, I know. Final Fantasy has been all over the place when it comes to Xbox. Excuse me. I love that franchise. I adore the Final Fantasy franchise, and I can't blame people on Xbox being annoyed at Square Enix because of the way the franchises came over. The first mainline Final Fantasy game on an Xbox was 13, which I loved, by the way. Like, I will defend that game because it's good, and I will die on that hill. It's a good game. People can just take. Like, Logan, did you like 13?
I like 13. I am a 13 stan, and I will say, like, shout out to Jason Ronald and the BC team who got, access to, data and stuff from Square to be able to go back and basically like make a free remaster. That trilogy is gorgeous on a Series X and 4K. It is literally like a free remaster the BC team did. And it is just it is outstanding. Looks like a Series XS title that just came out. And I know the combat and the way they did things is different than some traditional mainline Final Fantasy games, but I am in this house we support Final Fantasy 13.
Yeah, I love 13. Like the soundtrack, I love that soundtrack. And yes, I even like the Leona Lewis soundtrack from the trailer. Like it's a good song. I will die on that hill, but it's a good game nonetheless. And like you said, the graphics, like that's a 7th gen game, and if people haven't played, I highly recommend it. That still looks good somehow. It being a native 4K, like all that detail was there all along, and they somehow got the Blu-ray style cutscenes and inserted them into the backwards compatible version without touching the source code. I don't even know how you do that. Like that seems weird, right? I don't understand how it all works, but hey, it just does. Um, and it's a great game, great story, great characters. Again, I will defend that game with my life. Um, but like that, it was a very divisive game. People were hating on it at the time. People, it was the Marmite. It was the Marmite of Final Fantasy. People either loved it or hated it. And then the next one we got was 15, and that was the same deal. People either loved it or hated it. Some people absolutely hated the open world stuff. I kind of
Oh,
enjoyed it.
Final Fantasy Road Trip.
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty much just a road trip simulator, and if people played 15 before the first major patch, Chapter 13 was nightmare fuel. Like to the point where I wanted to literally throw my console out the window because it was just torture. It was horrible. Fortunately, they did fix it, and I will never get that time back. But we never got anything else. We had some weird offshoots. We had Final Fantasy Type 0 HD, which was a remaster of the PSP game. And by the way, that game causes people to get motion sick because the camera doesn't pan up or down. And it has motion blur that is so turned up, it's like being smacked in the face. And it's horrible. And then we got Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins. That's what we got there. And like again, that had its issues. It's still broken on Xbox, by the way. Ubisoft, sorry, not Ubisoft. Square Enix hasn't patched it in 2 years, so I can't even recommend that. And then we got Crisis Core Reunion, which I love that game. I think Crisis Core Reunion is freaking amazing. If you have an Xbox or like even a Switch or PlayStation PC, Crisis Core Reunion might end up being one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, top 3, because it's a full Final Fantasy story told in 20 hours. It somehow works. But anyway, for years we've been thinking, the PlayStation games got them locked down for life. Jez Corden, he has an extremely good track record when it comes to this stuff. I heard like 4 years ago that 7 was planned for Xbox. And then when it didn't happen, I was just like, okay, not using that source anymore. But I kind of believe this. Square Enix, they've moved to a full multi-platform strategy going forward. They even listed Final Fantasy in their documents. And as far as I know right now, there's only one new Final Fantasy game in active development, and that's the remake of 9, which is going to be in the same style as Crisis Core Reunion, which is perfectly fine to me. But like the big ones that people have been wanting is Final Fantasy VII Remake, 16, which came out last year, and the Pixel remasters, which somehow got Kindle ports. That I'll never get past that. Well,
That always pisses me off royally every time I hear about the Pixel remaster thing.
yeah,
Oh.
little Easter egg. Whenever I see my mother and she has a Fire Kindle tablet on, she points at that thing on the store just to mock me because she knows it annoys me. But hey, I think those games are coming over. TGS is just around the corner, and Xbox, they've been quiet on TGS for months. They haven't hinted at it. They haven't talked about it. They haven't even put a blog post up. And it turns out they're going to have a booth at Tokyo Game Show. They're going to have a live stream. So outside of that, it looks like stuff's happening. Now, I do think that it's kind of all over the place when it comes to rumors, because some people have said they are all coming over, some people have said they are in development, and some people have said they just don't know. The thing is, all three of those things can kind of be true. Ports of these games do not take as long as people think. It's not going to take years for these games to get ported. The Xbox and PlayStation, it's the same architecture. They just have to optimize stuff, get the Xbox API run, all that stuff, get achievements working on that, and optimize the crap out of it. So I don't think we'll be waiting that long. I will say this though, I do think 16 and the Pixel remasters will come this year. 16 is coming to PC. I think it might be this month or next month. That's a big port. That's a big job for Square Enix. They're going to make a lot of money on PC with that. But it looks like the gears are finally turning, and we're actually going to get some news soon. Because in the past, I will say Xbox has kind of tempered expectations when it comes to stuff, but all of the threads about this stuff has people talking about Final Fantasy, and no one from Xbox has, calmed down the rumors a bit. So it looks like it's happening. I don't think 7 Remake will even get mentioned. I think it's just going to come at some point, maybe next year when things have quieted down a bit. But Logan, what's your take on it? Because it's kind of happening at this point.
Yeah, I fully believe that we will be getting the Pixel remasters and 16 at Tokyo Game Show, and maybe some other like missing Square Enix titles that were just not on Xbox for various reasons, like maybe some of the missing Star Ocean games, or like the Mana games besides Vision, and maybe crack open that vault and bring back some older stuff like a Parasite Eve or something. But I do think there will be a noticeable Square Enix contingent and presence at the Xbox show. And as for 7, I think it will come to Xbox eventually. Like, I used to be like, that has a snowball's chance of happening, but now I firmly believe it will. The question is when. To me, I kind of think they might do a thing where they wait till the trilogy's all out and then like release a trilogy pack or something like that for Xbox. Like that's kind of my hunch or vibe, but I could be wrong. If they announced it at the show, I'd be thrilled. Day one for it for sure. And yeah, I really, even aside from Square, think that the Tokyo Game Show is going to be a big event for Xbox, because not only are they having booths and displays and stuff there, they're flying out execs apparently from Jez and other people's reporting. There's all the Square teases, like they can see blood in the water right now with the way Sony's PR has been lately. Like, if they want a moment to strike on Sony's home turf, this is it. So you better seize your moment. And I think they will. Like, I'm cautiously optimistic that they're going to do some good stuff at this showcase.
Yeah, I did have a thought about this. Excuse me. So back in 2019, like it was like 2 in the morning UK time. There was a random trailer just dropped on the official Xbox YouTube channel. It was after like a Nintendo Direct where all of the previous like older Final Fantasy games were announced for Xbox in one trailer, and then over an entire year they released them just slowly, maybe one every few months, and that's how we got 7, 9, 10, 10-2, and Final Fantasy World Maxima. I bought that game. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like Pokemon, but with like creatures and hats. It's a weird game. But they announced all them in one go.
Is that the chibi one?
Yeah, yeah. It's a fun game. It's kind of got Pokemon elements. But like, maybe they do it that way. Maybe they just announce everything in one go. I hope. It's And the weird thing is, ever since these rumors have been kicking off, people have been like replying to me online, just saying that no, they're talking about the Switch 2, and and by the way, I do think all those games will also be on the Switch too. I mean, why not? But like, there's this sort of like weird, just like anti, like putting these games on Xbox. Like, I never saw Persona fans lose their marbles over this. Never saw Yakuza fans lose their marbles. Dragon Quest fans weren't even bothered. But there's something about Final Fantasy that turns people cray cray. I don't get it. And maybe it's something in the water. I don't know. But like, as a franchise that originally started off on a Nintendo console, like people are just overly protective of this franchise. And it's like, if it was selling as well as these people pretended, they won't be getting put on other platforms. That's just the reality of the situation. And these Final Fantasy games cost a lot of money to make. Like a 7 remake, 16, a lot of money. Not pixel remasters because that's on a Kindle tablet, but I think that, these games are coming, and like you said, Logan, the fact that they're flying people out to Tokyo Game Show, who knows what's going to be there. I just hope that not everything gets spoiled, but it's weird seeing like, Logan, what's your take on the whole like reaction thing? Because like for what, a year plus, we've slowly been hearing that Final Fantasy on Xbox is happening, but it's like really now people are being really vile about it.
Yeah, it is like you said, cray cray. It's like I see your mentions all the time, and you've got these just like I don't even your Arkham Asylum escapees, as you call them. Like they flood your mentions anytime you post anything or anybody prominent in the Xbox community post anything about Final Fantasy and Xbox, it's like putting on the back porch light and saying, "Come on in," or like the lights on and all the moths just flock to the light or flame. It is insane. It's like this one like their bat signal and it's hilarious and weird. And like you said, like this was originally on Nintendo before Sony was ever, a figment of imagination in gaming. Like Sony used to be just in, TVs and hardware and like music and films and stuff before they got into gaming. So like Final Fantasy predates them in gaming. So it's just weird that they associate it solely with them and the vitriol is just doesn't make any sense. Like I'd get it if somebody wanted to be kind of petty or possessive. Like if a Sony fan like got with that they were wanting to port, God of War to Switch or wanted to port the Last of Us to Xbox or something, and they got all up in arms and hot and bothered and angry about it. Like that's one thing. It would still be goofy, but that's one thing, and I can understand that. Or like an Xbox fans, like where Sea of Thieves and some of these other games are coming to other platforms. They're not particularly thrilled about. I get it because it was stuff associated with your platform now going to other ones. But the fact that it is a third party, fully independent company that predates your platform being even in existence in the gaming segment is deciding to actually go back to fully multiplat again, and it just so happens to include Xbox, of course they're going to include Switch. If the Switch 2 can run these, they would be they'd have to be blind not to put that on Switch. You know how many Switches sell in Japan and everything? Like, you think Sony is winning over there? Like, Nintendo is still king at the end of the day. And yeah, of course they're going to put on Switch. But the fact that it's including Xbox as well gets them so riled up. It's just peak insecurity and it's funny and sad at the same time. And people need to go touch some grass.
Yeah, yeah. It is people just get really in the feelings about it. It's like it's just another game and franchise. Like, who really cares that more people? Like, we always told that more people should get to play these games and stuff. It's like, but like, there's people I've seen that work for Square Enix, by the way, literally work with or for Square Enix, and they get angry when Xbox fans just say, "Hey, I would love to play this on Xbox." Like, imagine being an employee of a company and someone else wanting your product. That's crazy, you know. No other form of media you see this. It's just gaming. It's crazy. But hey, it looks like those games are coming. I think it's the 26th that stream's gonna happen. But anyway, we'll be talking about that whenever it happens. I'm not entirely sure of what time that'll be on because of it being in Japan. I think it's at 11 a.m. UK time, which would be 4 a.m. Eastern. So whatever's happening, we'll talk about it at the time. Before we get into the whole PlayStation 4 5 Pro thing, I want to talk about Black Ops quickly, just for a moment, because the beta ended. Logan, I assume you didn't play the beta at all.
I missed out on the beta, but I have heard great things, and I am super stoked for it. What are your beta impressions?
Bloody amazing. Like, it is so good. So, like, little backstory for people that don't know, I stopped playing Call of Duty multiplayer in 2011. So, like, I went from I was maybe in, like, the top 50 or top 20 in the entire country. Like, I was so good at Call of Duty Black Ops. Literally, I think my KD was like 2.4 or something at the time. I did insane numbers in Black Ops.
No lifing it, man.
Yeah,
That's impressive.
literally, I'm not even kidding. Every single night, and I was playing with my friends all the time, and then just playing by myself, playing against randoms. Like, I no-lifed the living hell out of that game, and I just stopped playing. Modern Warfare 3 did not drive with anyone in 2011, so I took a step back. I moved to Battlefield, which is a slow-paced game, and I eventually got to a point where I stopped playing multiplayer altogether. Like, the last multiplayer game I properly enjoyed was Titanfall in 2014. And I've took the longest break from multiplayer since. And let me tell you, all that skill, all that, pro, elite level skill I used to have, flew out the window. None of that stuff retained at all. None of that muscle memory, nothing. Absolute terrible. So I've had to basically learn how to play first-person shooter PvP again from scratch. And let me tell you, what a long road. Absolutely terrible. So if you see a clip of me on Twitter and my aiming's kind of off, that's why. Because I'm literally bad now. Terrible. I'd swear if I didn't want to get demonetized, but let me tell you, I was awful. So I've been trying to get better. But Black Ops 6, the multiplayer is so good because the movement. It sounds so weird when you say it out loud. You can run in any direction. And then when you dive, your body stays on the ground and you can roll around onto your back and aim in any direction. It's basically Max Payne, but in first-person shooter. And it works so well. You can do Max Payne dives. You can aim while you're diving and fire while you're diving. It's a complete game changer. It's the biggest game changer for Call of Duty ever, even more so than jetpacks. So, like, if people have been held off a bit from, playing Call of Duty multiplayer, try Black Ops, because that new movement is butter smooth. It's some of the best multiplayer gaming I've had in a very long time. And I'm actually sad that the beta ended. And I say that as someone that plays single-player games, like 99% of the time. So, anyway, the beta ended. It was yesterday or the day before. The full game launches late October. That movement's going to be in the campaign, which the campaign looks excellent. The zombies. Long story short, I think a lot of people on all sides, single-player and multiplayer, are going to be very happy with this game. Anyway, we'll get onto the big stuff because we have a lot to talk about. So, where to talk about this? Okay. The PlayStation 5 Pro finally got announced. And I've been saying for years, Logan's been saying for years, and a lot of people have been saying the same thing for years. We do not need pro consoles this time around. Last gen, we were told daily for 4 years, 5 years, going on, well, 6 years or whatever, about resolution gate. Resolution this, resolution that, all that stuff. And like Digital Foundry were putting out like 5 videos a week covering different games, and like that's all people were talking about. Resolution this, resolution that. IGN reporting the resolution of every single game, how much grass is in GTA, and it got really annoying. And if you go back, like when the Xbox One X was announced, people were hyped. People were hyped that we're going to get this 4K console, the smallest Xbox ever, super quiet, super sleek. And like if you go back and look on the Xbox official YouTube channel, they actually had a full live stream as a launch party. And the way they were all acting, all the staff at Xbox, they were so excited because that whole narrative just went out the window. They had these beautiful looking games on this affordable console, and the resolution gate stuff ended. But people were making a big deal that there was no launch games for the One X. And, you know, times change and whatever. We get these brand new consoles in 2020, the first time we ever get brand new consoles, but during a pandemic, and a bunch of games got delayed to the point where in 2024 people say that this generation hasn't even started yet. And I can't blame people for thinking like that, because everything's been getting delayed. And there's been rumors of a PlayStation 5 Pro for about a year. And as the rumors were coming up, as PlayStation announced that they were going to announce it today, for the past 24 hours, I've seen a lot of people in the community saying that Xbox needs to counter this. They need to counter this because Xbox is in trouble. Blah, 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 in trouble. And like it's all a bit long in the tooth, long story short. PlayStation had a 9-minute stream, and it was Mark Cerny talking about all the advantages of what this console's going to do. They showed off side-by-sides of, I think, The Last of Us, Spider-Man, and I think a Ratchet and Clank game. And the differences were barely noticeable. And then I got to the end where they announced the price at $699 US, £699 UK, and I believe it said 699 euros. I think the video's frozen. There it is. It's expensive. I think it's 107,000 yen. So this is an expensive console. And to put things into perspective, this console does not have a disc drive. It does not have a stand, a vertical stand. And in the UK, if you buy this console, it works out to $913. And if you want to get the disc drive, that's going to be $1,013. And if you get the vertical stand, you're looking at what? $1,042 or something like that. It's expensive. It's really expensive as a mid-gen refresh. But the reaction has flipped in the past few hours, where everyone's been like, Xbox needs to have a mid-gen refresh to, you know, combat this, to who wants this console. Because it's like in a time when you have different industries crashing, you have the movie industry, which is in hellhole at the minute, you have the housing market, and everything's crashing at the minute. And this console is going to be a premium PC, you know, price console. In fact, you can get PCs cheaper. And like the differences, you can barely notice them. Like Logan, it doesn't have a disc drive. It doesn't even have a vertical stand. This premium console, it's $699 in the US. What's your thoughts? Because like everywhere, people seem to think this is. I've got the hiccups. People seem to be thinking this is a bad idea now.
Yeah, I've got a few thoughts on this. You might want to pull up a chair. It just, yeah, $699 for a slightly improved mid-gen refresh of a console that takes away the disc drive that was standard in your console and the stand. And so you're nickel and diming people on top of making it raising the price by $200. And you've just recently upped the pricing on controllers again and consoles like your base consoles again, and you have a pretty much desolate lack of games right now, except for Astrobot, which is great and is doing well, and I'm very happy for it. But Astrobot is not appealing to everybody, and not everybody is buying. I mean, a PS5 for Astrobot. I mean, I wouldn't think so, but like, it just who is this for? Like 700 for like I said, the base without the other things that are pretty much needed in modern entertainment, cabinets and spacing. And if you want to play your older games or your PS5 games that you'd already bought physically, you're just royally screwed if you don't shell out an extra, 100 or two to get those on top of the price itself. This is like basically instead of letting you use those SD memory cards you plug in the back like Xbox does, or the external hard drives to add extra memory, where you basically have to take apart the console and manually install something for extra memory and stuff. It's like it is very much a they couldn't be bothered type. This is PS3 ego. Sony is back. This is the this is the PG version of this expression, but basically, when you've got a fan base by the throat so much that you can just get away with whatever you say, and the fan base is just going to accept it. They're like, yes, master. Yes, Sony. $700. Okay. Like, this is also, I think, one of the consequences of Xbox's multi-platform initiative, their Project Latitude or whatever, is I feel like it has emboldened Sony a little bit. Not that they lacked confidence by any means, but to where they can go, you know what? You, to heck with your feelings. Like, we're just going to do what we want. We're going to put this big price out there, and you're just going to accept it because we're Sony. And if you need 2 or 3 jobs to get it, well, better send in those applications, buddy. Because it is like PS3 era Sony arrogance again. And, people want Xbox to respond, and I want Xbox to respond, but I want them to respond and show a competitive spine and some fire. I don't want them to respond with a pro console that I don't want, because like this, I think this gen is undercooked as is and isn't worthy of a mid-gen refresh right now. Max out the ones you've got before you move on to something else. With next gen coming soon, I think Xbox would be prudent to wait and release the handheld maybe sooner than later and the next gen instead of a mid-gen refresh, because my goodness, even like hardcore Sony zealots outside of Keeley are like shocked by this and saying this is outrageous and a ripoff. So, like, my goodness, like, if Xbox ever wanted to, you know, take a swing at the king, now's the moment. You've got your chance. So, either step up to the plate or what? Because it is their I am convinced that their multi-plat thing is kind of creating this monster, and they have a chance to fix some things, and I hope they do.
Yeah, I think it's a weird situation because like who's it aimed at? And people keep bringing up GTA 6. Um
$700 for GTA 6, really?
Yeah, like the casual market, they don't care about getting the best console version of this stuff. Like they don't, because remember, Red Dead Redemption 2 on Xbox One X looked miles better than the PlayStation 4 Pro version. And like people want the cheapest option to play these games. Like look at the Series S. Like didn't college football like sell really well when it came to the Series S in the US?
Yes, it the Xbox Series S within that early period alone, where people are paying $100 premium for the early access to the game, people were shelling out for a Series S just to play that game and that game alone. And it brought in a whole bunch of people into the Xbox ecosystem because they wanted to play a next gen game. It You didn't see a huge spike in PS5s or Series X sales during that period, but Series S, yes.
Yeah. And just like Football Manager in the UK, like people just want a cheap way to play these games. And like the person that has been no life in GTA for 10 years on their Xbox, One or PlayStation 4, they don't want this to play a GTA. A lot of people talk about GTA because they think it's going to be a big selling point, but like that's not how people think. Like the people on Twitter that talk about gaming all the time are enthusiasts, right? That isn't the millions of people out there. And look, Rockstar, I will say this: when it comes to them making games, they optimize games pretty well. You know, I think every version of the console versions they put out, they're going to be fine, but they're all going to be 30. There's always going to be developers on console that will target 30 because pretty graphics sell to the normies. That's just the truth of it. Um, but like the price of this thing, like I don't know who it's been sold at, like because you have these diehard PlayStation only fans. Only fans. You have these PlayStation fans that
You
um,
might need one to afford it.
yeah, I mean, Kazuai did tell us that we do need a second job, and this will require people to have a third job. But at the end of the day, like people, this is clearly targeted at people that already own a PlayStation. I think Sony's just wanting to get extra money out of them. Right? They'll make some profit on this. People get the disc drive. They'll make some more profit because let me tell you, those disc drives do not cost $100 to make. It's probably closer to 15 if you're looking at it. But like nobody really wants this, and it's kind of funny because like 24 hours ago, people were panicking. People saying Xbox needs to put out a brand new version of the console. It's like no, like I'm perfectly fine with the console I've got. Developers just need to optimize more. Look at the 7th generation. Look at Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and then compare it to Skyrim. You'd think they were running on two different pieces of hardware, and it's like they can get more out of these consoles. And I saw a developer before. I think it was a developer from Ubisoft or somewhere. They were talking about how like we've kind of hit this limit of like games looking as good as they're going to look. Like I think like Hellblade.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
honestly, I think Hellblade 2 is a good example of like I don't see games looking better than that. Like Hellblade 2 looks photorealistic, and there's a few other games. I think when it comes to the amount of like foliage and like how dense a game looks, like Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora, I think these are like the pinnacles of like video game graphics on console. Games are not going to look any better. We're basically going to be paying for extra frame rates, or should I say higher frame rates, and maybe some AI stuff when it comes to enemies. Like we were talking about this earlier on. Like, do you know one of the best things about Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2? Yes, it has pretty graphics, especially if you play it in quality mode. Oh my god! But it's the
You
fact.
30 FPS heathen.
Yeah, yeah, and people do not like it. People do not like it when I talk about like, yeah, I'm playing on the 30 FPS mode because it looks pretty as hell. But
Exactly.
But when it comes to like that game in general, the interesting part of it is when, oh yeah, there's hundreds of enemies running towards me. Like that's what I want out of like new generations and new technology. Yeah, pretty graphics are cool, but has anyone really looked at Hellblade 2 and think we need new hardware? No, nobody thinks that. What about having more buildings you can enter in GTA 6? Although I think everyone on the internet well, I should start a PS only feed. Oh god. You know,
Yeah.
we have seen in the community on Twitter, some people have done that. So
There are a lot of catfish out there, just saying.
the catfishing online in the gaming space has been wild. But that's a story for another day. I think when it comes to this Pro, like Xbox, they don't need to answer it with more hardware. Like, just optimize the games, get their developers out there to different studios, and make sure they can get these games up and running. I don't care. Look, 30 FPS is a big no-no to a lot of people, but I post a lot of footage on Twitter, and a lot of the time, people ask me, what's the frame rate? Meaning, if you can't tell by looking at the video, you can't tell in general. That's just the truth. Hell, I've even, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, I probably have, but like, I've actually took 60 frames per second in games, rendered the video out at 30, just to see if people notice. They don't. Nobody ever notices. Nobody. It also could be a thing that, I play 360 games a lot. So maybe I'm just used to 30 and I'm okay with it. But I think, like, if we look to... It is weird because if you go back 4 years ago, what were people hyping up? Brand new technology. It wasn't the amount of enemies on screen. It wasn't graphical fidelity. People were hyping up a brand new SSD. IO
Oh my
throughput.
gosh, that was everywhere.
Yeah. Nobody was hyped about brand new pretty graphics. But for some reason, we were fixated on loading screens. For some reason. That was the only thing. We weren't talking about ray tracing. We weren't talking about AI. None of that stuff. And then all of a sudden now, in 2024, we are talking about, drumroll, graphics. Why? Why do graphics matter now, 4 years after the consoles came out? We all know why. The narrative shifts depending on who's got the most powerful console. And look, next gen, will Xbox have the most powerful console? We don't know. I bet they're bloody gonna try. But I think Sony may have put themselves in a weird position because in all of the leaked documents from the FTC court case, Xbox's new console comes out in 2026. So if PlayStation's coming out with a mid-gen refresh now, and Xbox comes out with a brand new whole generation in 2026, like, Sony cannot rush a new generation. And new generations are shiny objects. People love them, and Microsoft could be in a scenario where they are 1 or possibly 2 years ahead of the competition. Because we saw what happened with the 360. The 360 released a whole year before the PlayStation 3, and look how that turned out. Xbox 360 got mindshare. Even, like, put it like this, Xbox 360s had like a 50% failure rate, and they recovered to the point where they became the console that generation which you had to play. Right? All Xbox has to do now is fix their messaging, which is all over the place, and it can be fixed. I hope that... I know apparently Xbox higher-ups have had a meeting today because of the reaction, but I will say this. If they fix their messaging, and they just tell people at some point, again, in a live stream or whatnot, and they say next gen's 2026, that puts Sony in a bad situation because they can't let people that just bought a Pro to be told, oh yeah, there's a new generation out now, and they can't let their developers just optimize their games for the lesser powerful console, and just they can't say a more powerful console anymore because they're gonna run with that. Like, what's that tagline? Oh, by the way, if people haven't seen, Jeff Keighley is promoting this thing like he made it himself. Yeah, Jeff Keighley.
Have some shame, buddy.
Yeah, let me see. Actually, shall I go down his posts quickly? So his last post was, he's the inflation-adjusted prices for mainline PlayStation consoles since launch. So we're talking about inflation now. Bear in mind, in 1995, there wasn't a housing market crash, and everything wasn't inflated, like, the price of milk or anything. In 2000 with the PlayStation 2, that the PlayStation 2 in the UK was reasonably priced. It was a relatively cheap console compared to what people thought it would be. There wasn't a housing crash. There wasn't a housing crisis. People weren't finding it hard to make money or even save money. You have the PlayStation 3, which, albeit everyone knows, cost way too much. It really did. Like, that was a joke. Especially in the UK, it was a overpriced Blu-ray player. To have a £600 console in the UK at the time, what were they thinking? And all that stuff. Anyway, scroll down. What grade would you give today's PlayStation technical presentation? And it is 65% D or below. The post below that. This is the PlayStation 5 Pro, out November 7th, $699.99, whatever. Witness, Play Unleashed. These are the games that are going to be enhanced. The post below that. PlayStation 5 Pro pre-orders begin September 26th. Post below that. The key features for the PlayStation 5 Pro, blah, 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 blah. Below that, the PlayStation 5 Pro tagline is Witness, Play Unleashed. The post below that. I'm not even making this
You're
up.
not defeating the allegations with that, Jamie.
I can keep going. The first 4K images of PlayStation 5 Pro. Scroll below that. The PlayStation 5 Pro arrives November 7th, $699.99. The post below that. This is the PS5 Pro. The post below that. The Mark Cerny is announcing the PlayStation 5 Pro, and it's just the logo. The post below that. Mark Cerny's last PlayStation presentation was held 1,679 days ago. I really hope he isn't counting. The post below that, just an hour away until Cerny returns to the stage of his PlayStation technical presentation. Keep notifications on for live updates. Jesus. I've never seen anyone love this, like, love a console that much. Like, people call me a fanboy on Twitter because I will say, hey, Dune Awakening also coming to Xbox. And I get told all sorts. And, like, I don't know if he's being paid by Sony for these promotions, but we will have to see. Whenever Xbox does come out with new hardware, be it a console or handheld, will we see this amount of posts in the span of 2 hours?
You will get one post at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
One. If you're lucky. One.
Yeah. And, like, like you said, he's not beating the allegations. Like, if you go back to his Gamescom stream, this is a bit of a tangent. Like, when Genshin Impact was announced for Xbox on stage, he went, oh yeah, and it's coming to that Xbox. But when Indiana Jones was announced for PlayStation, he literally turned around, looked at the screen, and waited for an applause. Like, come on. But yeah, the announcement, it didn't go down that well. Fans on either side aren't happy. And I'm looking at the poll on Reset Era. And if people don't know, Reset Era is a very PlayStation-centric... Yeah, basically. Yeah. It's a PlayStation-centric forum. Developers go there and listen to people, which they shouldn't do that. These people know nothing. Well, anyway, their poll is, will you be picking up a PlayStation 5 Pro? And it's 86.7% no, and that is out of 5,531 votes. So, people don't want this. People want more games to buy. People want value, and that console doesn't have value. You don't have backwards compatibility. You're having to pay for a stand. You're having to pay for an extra disk drive. You have to pay for your cloud saves. I mean, you probably have to pay to turn it on next. I just think that I've been so against pro consoles for 4 years. I'm not changing now. Xbox could announce something tomorrow. I'm against it because we want better optimized games on the hardware we've got. People spend 4 years getting... How many games have been delayed? Constant delays. You open Twitter, there's an image that has a wall of text. You already know what that is. I don't even have to tell you what that is. And we've had that every single week. Games get delayed. They need to optimize further. And it's like, I get people are a bit weird with the Xbox's position right now when it comes to their messaging and whatnot. And like, that's been their number one problem for years now. And that's stuff they can fix. But like, throwing new hardware, expensive hardware, right now, it's a bad sign. Do you know why? Because Sony can't release a PlayStation 6 that costs a penny less. They just can't. Right? So what's Xbox going to charge their next-gen consoles at? Are they going to be like, oh yeah, it's $500 again, somehow? Or is it going to be $599, $699? Maybe these companies are testing the market out for seeing how many gamers will outright buy these consoles at those prices, because for the first time ever, consoles aren't going down in price. This is the big thing no one's talking about. Consoles aren't going down in price. Remember with the 360? That thing dropped £50 in the first year. And it sold like hotcakes, even before the sale. Right? This time around, the consoles aren't going down in price. Well, the Series S has gone down in price in the UK. But like, in the UK, prices of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 have gone up. Back in my day, prices went down.
Exactly. It's lunacy.
It's just, I think that these consoles, Xbox has a 2 terabyte digital, or it might be a 2 terabyte Series X. It's got like a Galaxy paint or something on it. It looks pretty cool actually, but I think that's $599 or something. These are expensive pieces of hardware, and I think these aren't just like, hey, here's a PlayStation 5 Pro, we're going to test the waters out, because we want better graphics. No, I think they are really testing the waters for future pricing. I think next-gen consoles are cooked for prices. They'll probably raise because they've been wanting to raise the price of everything for ages. PlayStation just raised the prices of their consoles in Japan. They just raised the prices of the controllers. Yeah, the controllers in the US and Europe. Like, it's an expensive hobby to be into gaming, and I think going forward, they are just going to try and nickel and dime us all. Who knows what the Switch 2 is going to be? In fact, I think Nintendo, they're probably going to do a really good job with the Switch 2, which is probably going to be announced soon. Logan, before we close out the show and before I finish my rant, what price do you think the Switch 2 is going to be? I think it's going to be $350.
Yeah, I think the Switch 2, that seems like a good range to me. 350 to 450, somewhere in there. Because all they have to do for the Switch 2 is basically bump up the power enough to match what the Series S and the PS5 or the Series X can do, or just a little bit less. Like, get it from that kind of uncomfortable spot to where it was better than the Wii U, obviously, but it still wasn't up to snuff to run most AAA games like the new hardware was for the other companies. So at least get it to that point, and you can sell it at a lower price than your competitors, and you have their vault of IP and their goodwill they've generally been producing lately with film adaptations and other things. Like, Nintendo's sitting really pretty right now. So to me, I think they could knock this out of the park next month.
Yeah.
And do really well with that. And as for pricing for next gen consoles in general, like, I don't know. Like you, I think this is them testing the waters to see just how much they can get away with. And to me, if people really balk at this, it would be a great thing, and it would send a strong message. But I guess we'll see. But I mean, would you be shocked if a next gen console theoretically cost $1,000? Would you be shocked at that?
I wouldn't be shocked. Like, they technically charging $1,000 in the UK for the Pro, so we call this thing in the UK called Apple tax, where Apple products just cost like a lot more in the UK than they do in the US, because they just can. I think, like, go back years ago. The 3DS came out in the UK. The 3DS in the UK didn't have a charger. It cost the same price actually it cost more in the UK, and it didn't have a charger. Then iPhones start doing the same thing, no charger. Then all phones start getting rid of the charger, at least most of them. And I think it's just they are really gonna pay attention to the market, because I wouldn't be surprised if next gen consoles, just in general, like 700, like that's gonna be a lot of money. It's a lot of money now. It's gonna be a lot of money then. I think it's again, I think it's the companies testing these waters out, because look at when the pandemic happened. People were wanting to pay through the nose for all these consoles because they were being scalped all the time. So people were buying Xboxes and PlayStations for like $1,000 off some dude on the corner of a street in a trench coat. Like, but when you buy these games off, these consoles off a company, like, they just shouldn't cost that much. I don't know. Like, we talk about prices a lot in gaming, and I feel like we do people really feel they've gotten their money's worth out of the consoles we have? Because I don't.
No.
And as of right now, I'm gonna get what 2 more years out of my console. And if the next gen console arrives in 2026, I've had what 2 more years. I've had GTA, a bunch of other first party games. I that I'm fine with. But like, yeah, I think if people at Microsoft are listening, or if like they're making plans, like they need to plan everything going forward really carefully, because price is going to be a big factor. And if they can somehow get a next gen console out in 2 years that costs less than their Pro, that's going to be a winner. It's been an absolute mess online, because like it's weird. You've had people hyping up this console for years and months, because of the power narrative going back to them, but now the prices came out, and that they've seen the difference in the games. Because when the One X came out, we all saw the differences. You had Halo 5 running at 900p going on 1080p at 60 frames per second, and when it came out on the One X, it was native 4K at 60, and it looked demonstrably better. And you're just not seeing that this time around. So, like, we've talked about this for months, Logan. Like, I've been saying, is it going to be more 4K? Like, like they kept mentioning resolution, and I just feel like it's just really unnecessary, man.
I completely agree. Like I know you and I are aligned on many things, and this is one of them. And it feels completely unnecessary. And I'm not trying to be a fuddy duddy or rain on people's parades, or like if you want a PS5 Pro that daggum much and you have the disposable income and you want to get it, power to you, enjoy it. I hope you do. It just or if they announced for some reason a Series X squared or something like that, to where it was out and people want it, then cool. To me, it just doesn't seem like a good value proposition. It feels like the consoles are underbaked as is. Like there's more that they can work with. Like you said, on the 360 generation, you had games like, Oblivion and Quake 4, other things launching at the beginning, and then you get sequels to franchises later in the generation. Like Halo 4 I have no idea how that runs on the
Yeah.
360. Like, that game was just otherworldly gorgeous, and like it probably make your 360 feel like it was gonna explode. But like the fact that you could get all that in that gen to now, it feels like they really need to justify jumping to a next gen console. And if Xbox is listing, if you could somehow, some way, find a way to thread that needle and make a next gen console for the price of this Pro, or somehow 600 or a little less, man, you'd be really cooking with gas there, because people would be all right. They already gotten the shell shock, sticker shock out of the way from the Pro, and that's for a mid gen refresh. if you release your whole on next gen console that's more powerful than this and has next gen bells and whistles, and they're actually bells and whistles this time instead of just slightly polished metal compared to whatever it was before, and you really just you nail the messaging and you go all in, and then on top of that, you lower the prices of your current gen consoles now. Like, I know you just raised them some places, but if you lowered the price of your stuff, like, everybody's shocked right now at this. If you go, you know what? Hey, we've got this great deal going on, and we're going to cut the prices on these and throw in some Game Pass for a few months or whatever. Like, I think you could really seize momentum. They have the chance. They just gotta take it.
Yeah, yeah, nail on the head there. I think, like you said, Xbox, they just need to make the right decisions, and they have the people there that can make these decisions. Just uh, there's unfortunately there's people higher up at Microsoft that are maybe pulling strings when it comes to cash and whatnot. But messaging first off,
Puppet Master, yeah.
yeah, first off the messaging, just fix the messaging. You know, I think people are at the point now where like even Microsoft and people at Microsoft, they know that they need some exclusives, like your Halos, your Forzas, your Gears, your Fables. Like I'll call them mainstays, but like if Doom Eternal or sorry Doom the Dark Ages or stuff like that, like people at the end of the day they get over it, right? Just keep the main stuff, on your platform, and you've got PC and cloud, and cloud is projected to get really big over the next 10 years. Like they're going to be raking in a lot of money. But on the consumer side, you need to fix the messaging. Anyway, everyone in chat has been amazing. Logan, it's been great talking to you once again. I think that, normally we don't talk about PlayStation much because it's an Xbox-centric podcast, but the price thing does really affect Xbox consumers because, like the whole £70 game situation, it can happen with hardware as well. And we just want good hardware at a decent price at the right time. And what we're seeing this year isn't it. And at the end of the day, I want all three companies to be successful because that's how we all won during the 360 generation. Whereas PlayStation may have started pretty badly, by the end, everyone was making a lot of money and everyone was really happy. Anyway, we'll be back the same time next week. And if you want to see some crazy people, just look at my replies on Twitter. You'll have a laugh. It's Actually, I'll read one of these replies out before we close out the show because I was shocked, right? So
You're a liar, Jamie.
oh, honestly, so I just posted the most affordable way to play GTA 6, the Xbox Series S, and it's Butcher from the boys holding an Xbox Series S. Pretty simple. I'm not being mean. I'm just literally saying how it is. And this person, who's clearly a new account, bunch of numbers after the name, he says, no, it's not. And I heard that you said on Trash Stick Podcasts, we name calling now, you ain't crap. I'm not swearing today. All you want is PlayStation dead. This guy has been replying to Crispy Bomb on Twitter for hours, just saying you want PlayStation to die. And it's like I keep reading that in Jar Jar Binks' voice for some reason. Like it just
You saw what PlayStation.
yeah, like I can't unhear it, but it's crazy, man. And like I'll read another crazy. At some point, I might make a video just archiving a bunch of these because there's some really funny ones.
I mean, Alex has a whole shtick of that does quite well.
Yeah.
So
I'll read this one out. So, this was a brand new account. This was made this week, and this person only ever replied to me in this reply. So I posted hundreds of thousands of enemies on screen in a linear campaign with no open world, no bloat. Gears fans, sci-fi fans, get this. Hashtag Space Marine from Xbox Series X. My usual shtick. This person replied, looking forward to Indiana Jones on PlayStation 5 Pro next year. I've been having a lot of fun with Astrobot. Happy gaming. That person has never posted another message. I don't know where these people come from. Oh, here's another one. With all Final Fantasy Xbox talk, 16 makes sense to drop this year. Someone replies, "No, it won't." Brand new account. Like, where did they come from? I posted about Psychonauts 2. Someone, brand new account. Why are you talking about this game all of a sudden? Because it's a genre that's a topic. Like, these absolute psychopaths come out of nowhere, and I just don't know why. And it's so funny because, like, 90% of the time I get these replies, it's just me posting footage of a game I'm playing. I'm not making a meme. I'm not being console war centric. I'm literally just posting footage of a game I like. And these absolute trash panda, like, nonsense folk, these people that are maidenless, they've never touched a woman in their entire life, and being born doesn't count. Like, they're just weird. Weird. I always picture them as these people that just smell for some reason. You know when you hear about people going to Comic-Con and it smells, apparently? I kind of get that impression this is one of those people. Like, hasn't left the house in maybe 6 months, not because he's anxious or anything, just because he, likes to stay in the house all day, and that's all he does, is Twitter. Twitter this, Twitter that, new account, I'm going to stalk some other adult males. It's weird. It's weird. It's all over video games. Let's see if I can find another psycho one before I close out the show. I've got so many.
And it's over you simply liking one. It's not even like you're tweeting, death to this or death to that, or this is going to take over, or this or that. You're not even being toxic. You're just like, hey, here's a cool game coming to the platform. I'm happy. Are you happy? And people are like, go yourself, Jamie.
Yeah. Here's another one. I posted about how Square Enix is moving to a full multi-platform strategy, which is in their documents. And I get this reply: I'm hoping Square is not going to make this mistake. No Xbox player will buy games, and they will wait for Game Pass. No profit here. Just skip Xbox as usual. It's like, why are you so angry? Like, do these people think I'm going to delete the game? I'm going to go to their house. I'm going to open the window. I'm going to go to their PlayStation. I'm going to delete the game, change their password. Like, did these people, the absolute mental folk? I don't get it. I really don't get it. Anyway, today's been fun. Like I said, we're back next week for another episode. I will have some reviews of Age of Empires going live during that podcast. So I said Age of Empires again. Damn it. Age of Mythology Retold, and some other stuff. I don't even know I can talk about some of the reviews I'm doing. Anyway, everyone, chat's been awesome. We're back next week. Also have another video dropping next week, which should be fun, especially if you like Xbox games. Anyway, we're out, everyone. Peace. Have a good night.